Michael, a Mercedes guy here, and we're going to do a little tutorial in doing body work. So we got a couple dents here, one here, a bunch of dents here. Okay, for good results, you want to take off all the paint you can in the area of the dent, because you don't know what's happened before. As you can see, this deck lid has had clear put on it, and this obviously was not done at the factory because it's all flaking off. But you want to get most of this off, and you can use a grinder with a sander with some pretty coarse paper. I've got 40 grit here that I'm going to just really raise hell with that. All right. Now, I sanded on this a bit, and as you can see, this deck lid, there's the original factory blue right there, and it's been primed again and painted blue again. So we want to take it down, get all of this old primer off. Once we get down to the factory paint, it's good enough to go for the Bondo. Now, if you run into Bondo, that means somebody else has been messing with the surface, and you really want to take all the Bondo off. Now, I'm down to the original factory blue and the factory primer. There's just a teeny bit of primer there from a previous paint job, but that's good to go. The factory put on their paint very well, and the Bondo will adhere, and it's not going to flake off from that. Okay, now a trick I do, I use a flexible piece of metal. Now, I used to use a carpenter saw. However, this one has a curve in it. But if you have a carpenter saw that's absolutely straight, it works wonders on getting your Bondo nice and flat to start with, so you don't have to do a lot of sanding. So I've got a very flexible ruler here that I'm going to use, and a little less flexible. And these are brand new and have a very nice straight edge. Now, once you run this over the Bondo, you're going to have Bondo sticking to it, so you want to clean it off right away so you don't end up with an irregular edge to it. Your Bondo. There's going to be some dust around here that you do not want into your Bondo, so be sure and blow this off. Or you can use a blow gun off an air hose. And you want to use one of these kind of openers for taking your lids off. It grabs the lid a lot better than using a screwdriver, and it doesn't distort the lid. When you start distorting the lid, it'll never seal right. Now, when you take the lid off, you move it over here, then you tip it over. You never tip it over the Bondo. Okay. For mixing the Bondo, you can use a sheet of plastic. You can buy them in the auto parts store. I just use a piece of cardboard because it's a throwaway and that has a gloss surface on it. Okay, I've got some Bondo out here. We call it mud. And your hardener, you want to knead this like you knead bread. Get it mixed up good inside there. When the tube's brand new, it's kind of hard to do, but this tube has been used some, so I'm kind of getting it kneaded a bit. Then it's kind of a thing you learn after a while, how much to use. Now that's about right for that amount of Bondo. And if you want the Bondo to set up faster, you double that amount. Now, mixing up the hardener, you want to get a really good mix, and you want to be sure and drag your mixing spatula off the edge so you can get all of that off, because otherwise some unmixed Bondo will be on there. And you want to get a uniform color. Okay, that's ready to go. And I'm going to grab a light spreader here. It's always nice to have brand new spreaders. However, if you notice, there's a lip right there of plastic that shouldn't be there. So this is not flat. So I dress these spreaders in order to avoid them messing with you, because you want that surface very flat. And this deck lid is pretty flat. Now, as you see, that's been removed, so it's a nice flat surface now to spread your Bondo. Now, you kind of get a hang of doing this after a while, and I've got all my Bondo in one spot here, so that I'm not smearing any more around than necessary. Now, I'm going to take this tool here and check daylight underneath it to see what the curve is. So, as you can see, there's a little void here of Bondo. So we're going to fill that. Get a little more on there, and then I'm going to drag this tool over it again. Both directions. Now we're pretty good. We're going to let that set a little bit. Now when I drag this, I first get the curve of the deck lid, and then I bend it a little bit more so that it's a little bit higher than where our finished surface is going to be. Now once the Bondo gets to a certain hardness, you want to monitor it. And when you can take your fingernail and it takes some pressure to make an indentation, that's the time that you want to use your cheese grater to take off the high spots. These will save you a lot of sanding time. Now, just before the Bondo starts to get hard is the time you can peel it off of here, and it comes off in one piece. Or you can just let the Bondo get absolutely hard. But if you're moving along doing work, you don't have time for that. But, now, by the way, this is a junk deck lid that I'm using. I wouldn't do this on the surface of a car that I'm doing work to. You'd have another bench or another surface to use to do your cleanup. Okay, this is going to be a test here. And that's just about right to use the cheese grater. That's what we call these things anyway. Now, if it's too soft, it will jam up the holes. So you want to not let that happen because it's kind of hard to clean. So that needs like about 1 more minute. Now to clean this, I've got a dedicated wire brush. In other words, this is never used on oily surfaces or to clean stuff. That's just my wire brush. I know it from my other ones that I use when I'm doing body work. So this is about ready to go here. And you see how that peels up real nice. And you can put pressure on this to get down into the surface that you want to take off. Now, again, you can use your straight edge and just drag over it and see if it leaves black marks. Let me see if I can make a black mark there. You can't quite, but usually you can get a different coloration to the Bondo, but that's still kind of high. And of course, there's nothing like your hand to feel the height of the Bondo. And you never want to take off too much. That's a problem that happens with beginners, that you end up taking off a little too much, and then you got to add more Bondo. I'm going to take off a little more here. And you can see that I have not touched that spot there yet with the grater. Now I'm bending the grater up a little bit so that I'm concentrating more on my workplace so I don't have scratches out any further than necessary from your area being worked.